Howdy y'all, my name is Nick, and in this video I'm going to be telling my story about how I got a 1-acre ranch out in West Texas. But before I get into this story, I'm going to give a backstory for y'all who haven't been to the channel. In March 2020, I got a 1-acre tract of land with a 700 square foot house and 4 cars. It had been abandoned for about 20 years and needed a lot of cleanup work. I basically documented every day that I was out there working on it, cleaning it up. I put all these videos into a playlist that you can find down in the description. Now moving on to the story. So I'm going to break this story down to 3 parts: why I got it, how I got it, and what I've done with it, and what my future plans are with it. But to start off with, this story stems off another story about how I ended up in West Texas with a hangar and a plane. So basically, as you know, I had a hangar and a plane, and this airport was about 3.5 hours away from where I live. And in order to keep up with the plane, we had to stay in a hotel. And we realized after a while that we were running up a hotel bill, so we needed to find a place that was more permanent that we could stay at. So I started looking around for land because I had some money, and online results, just looking on Zillow and stuff, wasn't really showing anything, and if there was something, it was way over budget. And I even checked the paper and there really wasn't anything. So at that point I just started scouting the county, just looking for anything that looks abandoned and that I could probably contact the owner and make an offer on. First property I contacted the owner on, I didn't hear anything back. And then the second property ironically happened to be something that I would drive by to get to the airport, but I really didn't pay attention to because at the time it was earlier that year and things were grown out and I couldn't really see into the land to see what was in there. But one day, it all kind of changed one day in November 2019 when we drove by there, and we could now see into the property and see that there was a house and some cars and stuff. And so I started thinking, well, this would be a really cool property to work on and have, so I just decided, well, okay, I'll just get the owner information and contact him. Well, so we went to the airport like we were planning to do, and we came back around one more time just to look at it again when we were leaving the airport. And that same day there was a for sale sign put on that property, and so of course I called the number that day, but it was during the weekend, so I didn't get anything. So the next week I called again, and it turns out that the land was up for auction and that it was a sealed auction. So basically you put in a bid and nobody else could see that bid. So I was the first bidder on this land, and I put in a bid and I just waited. And during that time I was like, okay, this might not work out, so I'll just keep looking for stuff. And I found another property that was about 5 acres, and I got in contact with the owner on that, but it turned out that it was way over budget. So I'm just like, at that point things kind of ran short. I couldn't find anything else really to contact people on, so I just decided, well, I'm gonna have to wait on the auction. And it was kind of getting concerning because months were going by, and I called at one point and found out that there was about 5 other people bidding on the land, so that just made me even more concerned. And I just kept waiting, and in March of 2020 I got a letter saying that I won the auction. And shortly after that, I just made my first video on the land and started just making a video about everything I was doing on that land. At first, the house, I had got some opinions that it probably needed to be torn down, but when I saw the house in person, I'm like, this thing is dry, it's pretty solid, it's got a metal roof on it, didn't even leak, but it still needed a lot of work because it had been abandoned for 20 years. Previous owner was a hoarder, so I would say that, and there was something about Dr. Pepper in that house, because I don't know what it was, but every square foot of that house I would say was probably covered with Dr. Pepper cans. there's also still some Dr. Pepper cans under that house to this day, but we weren't sure. I think we were hoping that we would just be able to clean the house out and make it livable, but by the time we got all the rooms cleaned out, we realized it wasn't going to be the thing. It was going to need more work, and plus the time we had was very limited because we were only going out there weekends, so we only had one day to work on this land and get things straightened out. So at this point we just decided, well, we'll look for an RV or a camper trailer to put on the land. So I started looking around, and of course the market at that time was really hot for these campers and trailers and stuff, and they were getting bought up real quick. So I wasn't really finding much, or if I did find something, it was already gone. So I finally was able to find one trailer that was for $3,000. I went and looked at it, and it turned out that the lady had kept a tenant in it, and the tenant trashed the trailer, and it was pretty much totaled. I mean, saying it was $1,000 was pretty generous, but it was pretty much worth nothing. So I just walked away from that trailer and just kept looking. And I never really thought about mobile homes. Didn't really think about it at all until pretty much I was looking on Facebook, and this 12 by 55 mobile home popped up for sale. And out in West Texas, they call them trailer houses, so whatever you want to call them. I kind of call them trailer houses too. But anyways, it popped up on Facebook for like $4,000. I'm like, shit, that's a good deal for a full size, mobile home. It wasn't double wide, it's a single wide little thing, but still, it's a lot of space for that much. And so I reached out to the lady who was selling it, and probably a few minutes or so after that, or the next day, it had sold. And I was kind of pissed about it, and I wasn't expecting to see it ever again. And apparently I just kept looking on Facebook, and all of a sudden the same trailer popped back up on Facebook again. I'm like, this is cool, I'm going to reach out. And this time, I reached out to the lady, and apparently what happened is that the other guy who had reached out to her and paid her to hold it couldn't find a mover to move the trailer. So he gave up on it. And so this time I was pretty much equipped with a mover. I had already called around and found somebody to move it. And so this time, the lady wasn't wanting to do like $200 to hold it. So we just decided we'll do half down. So we put $2,000 on it to hold it. And I had contacted my mover, and I thought things were going well. Apparently we had to do a little bit more clearing on the land because the land still wasn't quite ready for a trailer. So we did all that clearing, and by the time we were done with that, we realized that I haven't heard anything from my mover. So we kept calling them, and things are kind of getting stressful because it's like the lady selling the trailer wanted the trailer gone ASAP because she had a tenant in it and she wanted to move the tenant into another trailer. So she was pressing on us hard to get this mover to get into gear to move this mobile home. So I kept calling this mover, and he kept saying, oh, well, we'll meet this time and do this, and nothing ever happened. Nothing came out of it. So I finally got him to give me a number for somebody else, and so I called that guy and told him, you need to give me a schedule. So he planned out everything for the following week, and he came out there, and for $3,000 we had the trailer, basically the tear down done, the move, and the install, and it was all nice, and we had a trailer on the land. But before we had gotten the trailer, we had gotten a tractor to clear things, so that was about $4,000, because I'm going to price some of this stuff out, how much, because I got the land for about $6,400, but a lot of other expenses added on to that, so I got about $20,000 into it. So the tractor to clear the land was about $4,000, the trailer was $4,000, and then to move it was $3,000. So we got this trailer in, and then from that point we just focused on the trailer and not the old house, and we just focused on getting the power hooked up and we did that. We had to set up our own electrical box and all that, and Encore connected to their end, and we had to run like 100 foot of electrical cable to the trailer. But it was really good feeling to get power into the trailer. And then once we had that done, during that time we realized that, like, looking around on the land, there really wasn't a septic tank. We were hoping that there was probably a septic tank, but it turns out that this old house that originally had a bathroom off of it that collapsed only just had a pipe running to a hole in the ground, and that was a septic tank. So guess what? That was the biggest expense. We had to pay $6,000 for a septic tank, and we got that in there. And then pretty much the rest was just getting the water hooked up, and the well pump was about $200 because there was a well pump in there, but it was junk. And we measured out the water well, and it was about 50 feet. And from there we got everything hooked up, and now we had a functional trailer. All right, so now it's time to catch up on the timeline here between then and now. I think 2020 was the best year so far for me and the ranch, but unfortunately at the end of 2020 in December, tragedy struck when we found that the plane motor was junk. So that killed a lot of motivation to keep going back out there and doing stuff, because we no longer had the plane with us. Pretty much, you know, the plane was still there, but it was dead. We couldn't use it anymore. But in 2021 we still managed to get out there, and thanks to the trailer we did spend a couple of weeks out there. The trailer did good overall, but there were some downsides to it because the floor was majorly liquid damaged. It had holes in it, so there's mice getting in, and a lot of our heat and AC was going out as well, and relying on a window AC unit and space heaters was running up an electric bill. But other than that, it was a pretty good trailer. A side note is that it did come with another car. So now there's 5 cars on the ranch, and what it specifically came with was a 93 Ford F-150 truck. I did a video on that one. You can go back and see it. It's a $150 F-150. It came with another motor and transmission. I was going to do some videos on it, but I could never get it to run, so I gave up on the project. So now it just sits there. But other than that, the trailer was pretty much the grand finale of things. At that point, we didn't have any money to put into the house, but I did have a little bit of money left over to put into a truck, which I call the Green Machine. I also did some videos on that. If y'all haven't seen it, you can go check it out. It's a '69 Ford F-250. As a coal truck, and it made it 3.5 hours out to my ranch. You know, it not only is a coal truck, but it's a strong truck. I got some cleanup done with it, and there still is a little bit of trash left over, but it's mostly just scrap metal and stuff that I might end up taking to a scrap yard maybe, and kind of make a little bit of money off of. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we'll see. Also, since the motivation was down, we did get out there, but we didn't get out there that much. And at one point we missed the whole month of June, and we came back to a jungle. And we had to mow everything down, and it wasn't quite back to what it originally was from what we did in 2020. But we got it mostly done. And I did do some videos on that, of the ranch in 2021. You can go see those as well. But pretty much I have to say this is ridiculous, but the last time I was at the ranch was in December of 2021. And why is that? Pretty much because in order to get out to the ranch I need 2 functional cars. I need one here because I have another person living with me that needs a car, and I need my own car to get out there. And I did have a second car that was functional, but it was falling apart. It leaked, paint peeled, AC didn't work. It was 95 Corsica. And I ended up with this $500 Pontiac Grand Prix, and it was in better condition body-wise than the Corsica, but mechanically it was trash. And I thought that, okay, I'll put some head gaskets on it, it would be no problem. But here we are, months later, $3,000 in, and I was able to get it running and driving perfect. It's a nice car. But I had to replace the cat with an aftermarket one, and that pretty much ruined the car because now it won't pass inspection, it won't pass emissions. So the plan right now, probably this month or next month, is to drive that car out to West Texas and get it registered out there. And then I plan to have a schedule to keep going back out there, and I'll be making more videos of the ranch. But I also plan to do other things with this channel, because this channel isn't just about the ranch, it's also about cars. And I'm also looking to get into real estate, which is not guaranteed, but I might be having some real estate videos come up just to get some more content to the channel. But other than that, in the meantime, while I was gone from the ranch, I did some research and I was able to trace the deed history back to 1912, and it turns out that acre has been the same description in the deed since 1912. So I believe the house is older. The county says that it was built in 1925, but that's not 100% accurate. But there's really no way to confirm when it was exactly built. But I would say it's probably at least 100 years old. Another cool thing I found out is when I was doing yard work on the ranch, I found this hole in the ground that was filled in with cement, and it had this metal case. I didn't know what it was. I just assumed it might have been another water well or something for a windmill. But I stumbled across an article recently that was talking about undocumented oil wells in Texas. And they were saying that what they would do to cap these old wells is fill them in with cement. And it started to click there that this could be an oil well. So during my deed research, I found an oil and gas lease that had to do with my ranch. There was a previous owner that leased out the mineral rights. So that pretty much confirmed everything. So I'm pretty sure it's an oil well, but I don't plan on doing anything with it. And I'm hoping I can find somebody sometime to go out there and maybe look at it and make sure that it's 100% capped and it's not going to possibly leak and create an environmental disaster on me, because that's the last thing I want to happen with that. I haven't tested my groundwater, and I don't plan on drinking it. I just use my bottled water. And yeah, that's pretty much. Also, I guess the other thing I can address is there was a lot of comments on my first ranch video or second ranch video where a lot of people were concerned about the cans. You know, there's people saying, well, you could go recycle them or you should go turn them in for some cash. Well, unfortunately, during that time, the city had quit their recycling program. So everything at that point just went to the county landfill. And that's where those cans went, and I don't feel bad about it. I wanted to get the house cleaned in a timely manner, and I couldn't run anywhere else. It's also a waste of gas because the closest place to recycle would have been like an hour away. So it just wasn't practical, and yeah, that's how that went. But other than that, my future plans probably with the ranch is, when I ever get some money to put into it, is to fix up the house, get rid of the trailer, and put a shop or a pool on it. Probably put a shop because I'm into cars. I also did promise that the cars on the ranch I would do videos on, which eventually I'll get to that. Most of them, I've did the valuation on them. Most of them are poor man's cars. They're not worth anything. They weren't worth anything back in the day. They aren't worth anything now. So they're probably mostly good for parts, and I'll probably just be doing videos, seeing if some of these motors turn over and maybe run, and maybe getting some of them to roll. I don't know. But at this point, an overview of the cars that I have is the oldest I have is a 70 Plymouth Satellite, 4-door, slant 6, 3 on the tree, no AC. It's sitting on bricks, the wheels are off of it, and it's been sitting so far since '87. The previous owner of the ranch had barbed wired this car in. I guess he had some fear that it could get stolen. So he barbed wired the whole thing in there. So it's been pretty protected, but it hasn't been protected from the elements. So the trunk pan, it's got a lot of rot in it, a lot of holes. The next car is what I believe to be, it's definitely a Dodge Dart Sport, but I believe it to be a 74. I did a video on that car as well. I call it the stolen Duster because it's the most relatable, because it's the same body style as a Plymouth Duster. And it's a slant 6 with AC, automatic, but it's garbage. The floors are gone, the doors are rotted out, the A-pillars are rotted, and I call it the stolen Duster because I can't find any VIN on that car. The VIN tag has been purposefully drilled out of the dash pad. That's gone. Someone drilled the rivets out. Someone took the fender tag, and I finally got the driver door open to see if there was maybe a VIN on the door, and someone had made an effort to scrape it out. Now, I'm not going to accuse anybody, but at this point I believe it's probably stolen because someone has made this effort to hide this VIN for some reason. I don't know why, but all I can think of is it's theft. It was parked there probably around the same time, maybe not '87, but somewhere in the '90s. And then the next car that was actually next to it that I had moved was a '76 Ford LTD, and it has a 400 in it. When I found it, the hood was open and the carb was off of it, and it was buried 3 inches in the ground. So I'm pretty sure that motor is locked up, but I'll see what I'll do with that car. It's a 4-door as well. And then there was an '84 Mercury Grand Marquis 4-door that still had the battery in it. Somebody just drove it up there, parked it, and I looked at the history, and the registration had expired in '97, and the title was last done in '97. So I believe that car has only been sitting there. It was only used for probably about a year, and then it was parked, which to me makes no sense. But it's sitting there. And then, of course, I got the '93 F-150. So that's just a review of all the cars that I have there. And there are a few other buildings on the property as well. There's a barn that I haven't explored that has a well house off of it because they put a little well house around the water well. And then there's another barn that's collapsed that's got some stuff in it. I haven't investigated that. And then there's a little building set up in front of the house that is kind of like a shop. It's got benches in there. I think the previous owner was really into electronics, and he was taking apart TVs and whatever in there. But it's really cool. I haven't cleaned that out. I haven't found any keys or any titles for any of these cars. So that's the other reason why I don't want to invest much into them, because I got to get bonded titles for each one of them. And that's like $300 each. So, yeah, that's pretty much my update on the ranch. And I plan to get out there soon. I'll have another video, but just for my current subscribers, I'm not dead. I do see the subscriber numbers going up, which I'm happy. We might be able to hit 400 soon, but I want to get some more content to the channel. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.